I never imagined I'd have to defend my own home from someone trying to steal it, least of all from Karen Winters, the president of our homeowners association. But that's exactly what happened after my appendix ruptured and landed me in the hospital for 3 weeks. It began 6 months earlier, when I moved into Willow Creek Estates, a quiet suburban neighborhood known for its pristine lawns and suffocatingly strict HOA rules. I'm an architect who works from home, and I'd spent years saving to buy my dream house. The very day I moved in, Karen appeared on my doorstep, clipboard in hand, wearing a smile so tight it looked painful. "Welcome to Willow Creek," she said, in a tone that suggested I should be grateful for the privilege. "I'm Karen Winters, president of the Homeowners Association. You'll need to review our bylaws immediately. We don't tolerate rule breakers here." She handed me a 3-inch binder stuffed with regulations while inspecting my moving boxes like a customs officer searching for contraband. "Your mailbox is 2 inches taller than regulation. Replace it within 7 days or you'll be fined." I thanked her politely and promised to read through the rules, which, judging by her frown, wasn't the reaction she wanted. Later, my neighbor Tom filled me in. "Karen thrives on confrontation," he said with a weary sigh. "She's been president for 5 years because no one wants to deal with her. Everyone just tries to stay off her radar. For the first few months, I followed every rule to the letter and kept my distance. But everything changed when I decided to plant a vegetable garden in my backyard. The bylaws allowed gardens as long as they weren't visible from the street, and mine was completely hidden behind the house, enclosed by a decorative fence. That didn't stop Karen. She showed up one Saturday morning, her face flushed with righteous indignation. "Your garden violates Section 12, Paragraph 4 of our bylaws," she announced smugly. "All vegetable gardens must be approved by the landscaping committee, which I chair," I retrieved. The same binder she'd given me and pointed to the clause that clearly stated gardens only needed to be out of street view. "There's been a misunderstanding," I said evenly. "The bylaws don't mention committee approval for gardens like mine." Her eyes narrowed. "Then perhaps the bylaws need revising. Until that happens, remove it by Monday, or face a $50 a day fine." I refused to remove the garden, and from that day forward, Karen began her campaign of petty harassment. My grass was a 1/4 inch too long, my garbage can visible for 30 minutes after pickup. Even my garden hose was too distracting in color. The fines piled up. But I contested every one of them at HOA meetings, citing the actual bylaws. Each time, the board overturned her rulings, and nothing enraged Karen more than losing, especially in public. After one particularly heated meeting where the board unanimously sided with me, she cornered me in the parking lot. "You think you're clever," she hissed. "Nobody makes me look foolish in front of the board. You'll regret ever moving into Willow Creek. I promise you that." I dismissed her words as the empty threat of a control freak who wasn't used to being challenged. That was my mistake. 2 weeks later, I woke at 3 a.m. in unbearable pain and was rushed to the hospital. My appendix had ruptured, leading to sepsis and complications that kept me there for 3 weeks, followed by another 2 of recovery at home. While I was fighting for my life, Karen was apparently fighting for my property. Tom later told me he'd seen her entering and leaving my house several times, claiming I'd asked her to water my plants. In reality, she was setting up an elaborate plan to steal my home. The day I returned from the hospital, still weak and barely able to stand, I found an official-looking notice taped to my front door. It declared that my property had been deemed abandoned under HOA regulations and was now under new ownership. The notice referenced a deed transfer that had supposedly occurred 2 weeks earlier. I called the county clerk's office immediately, and my blood ran cold when the clerk confirmed that a deed transfer had indeed been recorded, showing I'd sold my house to Karen Winters for $1. According to the paperwork, I had personally appeared before a notary and signed the documents, while I'd actually been unconscious in the ICU. "This is fraud," I told the clerk, my voice shaking with fury. "I was in the hospital. I couldn't have signed anything." The clerk expressed sympathy, but explained I'd have to file a legal challenge to reverse the transfer. Meanwhile, Karen had already filed an eviction notice. giving me 72 hours to vacate her property. I called my cousin Jennifer, a real estate attorney who came over immediately. After reviewing the papers, she nodded grimly. "This is a textbook case of fraud," she said. "But we need to act fast. We'll file an emergency injunction to halt the eviction, then press criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and unlawful entry." Jennifer spent the entire night preparing the filings while I gathered evidence. Hospital records proving I'd been incapacitated, time-stamped medical notes, everything. I even installed security cameras, suspecting Karen might try something else. Sure enough, the next morning she arrived with two strange men. "These gentlemen will help you move your things," she announced with a triumphant smile. "I've generously given you until 5 o'clock today instead of waiting for the sheriff." I stepped into the doorway, blocking her path. My voice was steady this time. "Karen, you forged a deed transfer while I was in the hospital." "That's a felony," I said evenly. "My attorney has already filed for an emergency injunction and is in the process of pressing criminal charges against you." Karen's confident smile wavered for a split second before she forced it back into place. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "You signed the papers yourself." "I have a notarized document proving it." "I was in intensive care, unconscious from sepsis," I replied, holding up my hospital records. "And the security cameras I installed last night just caught you admitting that you expect me to vacate a home you fraudulently claimed. So, would you like to continue this conversation or would you prefer to wait until we're in court?" The two men with her exchanged uneasy glances and started backing away. "We were just told this was a routine eviction," one muttered. "We don't want any part of this." Karen's face twisted with fury as her helpers deserted her. "You think you're so smart?" she hissed. "I have connections in this town you couldn't even imagine. By the time I'm done with you, you'll wish you'd just walked away from this house." That same day, the judge granted our emergency injunction, allowing me to remain in my home while the case proceeded. Jennifer also filed a criminal complaint with the district attorney, backed by the hospital records, the forged deed, and the security footage of Karen's visit. The investigation advanced surprisingly fast. The notary whose stamp appeared on the deed had no record or memory of the transaction, and a handwriting expert confirmed the signature wasn't mine. Bank statements showed that Karen had made several large furniture and appliance purchases the day after she acquired my home. Clear proof she intended to move in. The most damning evidence came from Karen's own laptop, seized under warrant. Investigators discovered multiple drafts of the forged deed, a browser history filled with searches like how to claim abandoned property and forging signatures, and even a floor plan of my house, complete with notes about which rooms she planned to redecorate first. 3 weeks after I returned from the hospital, our court date arrived. Karen strode in looking self-assured, dressed in a sleek business suit and carrying an expensive handbag. She clearly believed her reputation would shield her from consequences. She couldn't have been more wrong. The judge, an older woman with steel gray hair and sharp, unwavering eyes, reviewed the evidence with growing disbelief. When Karen's attorney weakly suggested there had been a misunderstanding about my hospital stay, the judge cut him off. "Counsel," she said, her tone clipped with restrained anger, "the evidence shows your client forged documents to claim ownership of a property while its rightful owner lay hospitalized with a life-threatening illness. There is no misunderstanding here. This is criminal fraud of the most egregious kind." When Karen finally took the stand, her polished facade began to crumble. Under Jennifer's questioning, she first insisted that I had signed the deed before being hospitalized. But when confronted with the timestamp inconsistencies and medical records proving I was unconscious at the time, she shifted her story. "He was going to sell it to me anyway," she blurted defensively. "We had an understanding. I just expedited the paperwork." "Do you have any documentation of this understanding?" Jennifer asked coolly. "No, it was a verbal agreement," Karen replied, her eyes flickering nervously around the courtroom. "A verbal agreement with a man who was unconscious in intensive care?" Jennifer pressed. "That's your testimony under oath?" Karen's composure finally shattered. "He didn't deserve that house. she screamed, springing to her feet as the judge's gavel struck the bench. He moved into our neighborhood and immediately started breaking rules. That garden was an eyesore. His mailbox violated regulations. Someone had to teach him a lesson. The courtroom fell into stunned silence as Karen realized what she had just confessed. Her attorney buried his face in his hands. The judge's expression hardened. "Mrs. Winters," she said coldly, "this court finds that you knowingly and willfully committed forgery, fraud, and attempted theft of real property. These are serious felonies in this state." She turned to the bailiff. "Please take the defendant into custody." Karen's eyes widened in disbelief as the bailiff approached with handcuffs. "You can't be serious," she gasped, stepping back. "I'm the president of the Homeowners Association. I volunteer at the community center. People respect me." "Mrs. Winters," the judge replied icily, "you attempted to steal a man's home while he was fighting for his life in a hospital. You will be held without bail pending formal sentencing." Then, turning to me, she continued, "Sir, I am ordering the immediate nullification of the fraudulent deed transfer. Your property remains yours, legally and unequivocally. Additionally, Mrs. Winters will pay restitution for your legal expenses." Looking back at Karen, now being led away in cuffs, the judge delivered her final words. "Based on the severity of your crimes and your complete lack of remorse, you face a minimum of 5 to 7 years in state prison and fines up to $75,000. Karen's face drained of color as reality hit her. But my reputation," she stammered weakly as the bailiff guided her toward the exit. "My position in the community? You should have thought of that before committing felony fraud," the judge said simply, already turning to the next case on her docket.